we are going to dive into today about grid work and activating ancient pyramids, sacred sites, and ley lines. So Kelly Butterfly is an author, editor, a publisher for Rainbow Butterfly Publications and the Sasquatch Message to Humanity book series. Kelly is also an event coordinator for the Sasquatch Family Reunion Retreats and other sacred spirit gatherings. She is in service to others as a Rainbow Reiki practitioner, marketing specialist, and she also specializes in making Orgonite and jewelry. And I actually had Kelly on, I think it was about a year ago, to talk about some of her Orgonite that she was making on my other channel. And so welcome, Kelly. It's so good to have you back again.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here and to talk with you today.
And I'm super excited. For those of you who are watching the YouTube, you can kind of see behind us, we're going to be talking about some of the sacred sites, not only throughout the world, but also in Washington area, so Washington State. And behind me, I have the Tooele, Washington Pyramid. And Kelly also has a picture of Crystal Falls, which is located in a very similar area. And so her retreat that I actually participated in was located in Kettle Falls on Lake Roosevelt, right, Kelly?
Yeah.
Yes, and that event was amazing. And I'm going to share some pictures of that event in a little bit, because that event was so activating for me. And we're going to dive a little bit into what does that mean when we are activated doing grid work. And, you know, for me, this was all a very new experience about 2 years ago when I went to her event and I interacted with the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. And that just catapulted me into this beautiful awakening journey of being a grid worker. And I didn't even really understand what this concept was. So Kelly, being an author, she's wrote several books on a lot of these different concepts of activating the land. And so we're going to dive a little bit into that today. So Kelly, where should we begin?
Oh my goodness. I'm not even sure where to begin. Well, you shared a little bit about like the experiences that you had from the gathering. So I guess I'm curious to know how that activated within you and what the journey's been since then.
Absolutely. So let me share my screen here. I'm going to show some photos of this beautiful event that was held in Kettle Falls. And so, all right, let's see. Let's start off with the Mitchell Hedges skull. For those of you who are not familiar with this, and Kelly, you probably have a little bit more history on this skull than I do. So I came a day after the event had started. And as I was driving into Kettle Falls, I was almost being spoken to. It was kind of a mind speak, so, you know, so to say. So I was being pulled in. And when I pulled in to the campsite, everyone was gathered around one of the camp areas. And I didn't even really see what was happening. So I got my little chair and I went and sat down. And as everyone started to clear, this beautiful skull was staring at me, and I was feeling immediate just goosebumps through my entire body, like, whoa, like what is going on here? And at first I didn't really even recognize what it was. And then I was like, is this one of the skulls that I saw on the show Ancient Aliens? Like I started to put two and two together. And then as he, you know, Bill, right? Bill's the one who brought the skull, yeah, and he's the caretaker, the holder of the skull, handler. And he asked everyone to kind of come up and connect with the skull, not necessarily touch it, but just connect. And when I walked up to it, I immediately in my mind heard, "Welcome back. It's good to see you again." And I was like, what? You know, I could just sense this connection with this skull. And so I stood there for a minute and I started to fall into almost a little bit of a meditative state. And I started to see myself working with the skull with other people around me, what appeared to be Lemuria, you know, so it really catapulted me back into a past life in just maybe the 2 minutes that I was standing there with a skull. And then I stepped away and our friend Forrest Green popped up to me and was like, "You just had an experience, didn't you?" And I said, because my face probably, I look like a deer in headlights, because I was just like, what just happened? I pull into the campsite and then I see the skull and immediately I'm getting spoken to and I'm getting downloads, you know, from it. So this, I feel, was the catalyst for me to start doing grid work, because the entire summer, I call it the summer of Sasquatch and Friends 2020, because literally this was one of the first. Now, I'd always done the CE5 events and, you know, in Western Washington, but this was my first really interaction with the Sasquatch. And so when I started doing this work and I connected with a skull, I found myself traveling that entire summer. I had gone to 6 different national parks. I had gone to the Alaska Triangle, and I started to download information, light codes. I started to start drawing these light codes. And so this information was just coming through to me, and I didn't even really recognize what these were until I spoke to a 7-year-old boy. And he shared with me, and you'll probably laugh at this, Kelly, because you have a son, you know, so he was sharing with me this information. First of all, he flipped it around and said, "You have them upside down." Wow. And he said, "These are portals. These are stargates." He goes, "Each and every one of these symbols isn't just a word." He goes, "It's a concept. It's like an ideogram, you know?" And right. So the one that we really resonated with was the spiral with the 3 dots.
That's the one I keep looking at right now.
That's funny. That's the one that we connected with over near the pyramid near Mount Adams, which is in Western Washington. And I actually have a little map here that I drew out. So we've got Kettle Falls right there in the north, which is where Kelly's retreat was that summer. And then if you go, there's a pyramid there in Chewelah, which is the picture behind me here. And then you go down and there's Ellensburg, which there's a very odd hole there they call it Mel's Hole. And back in the 90s, Mel went on a show or program. And I just remote viewed this hole on Remote Viewing with Jessica Jones. And that was a very interesting, there's a lot of wormhole activity, just very odd activity there. And then you had just sent me a website from Red Elk that talked about a pyramid in this area as well. So I added that to the map. And then you've got the Yakima Indian Reservation there, and then Mount Adams, which has a ton of whole bunch of activity from Sasquatch to extraterrestrial and, you know, a whole bunch of stuff. So, but if you look at this, it all lines up kind of on a line, which is very, very interesting there. So I know Kelly. So Kelly lives up in Colville area up here near Kettle Falls. And this is where she has held the retreats in a lot of variety of areas. So let me pull up some of the pictures here. This is a beautiful picture that she just sent to me by Jacob St. John. And this is the Chewelah Pyramid, the pyramid that's behind me in the photo. And look at this beautiful rainbow light. So do you have any story behind this, Kelly, as to, you know, when this was taken?
Not this particular photo. I think this must have been taken in probably 2016. Jacob St. John is a gentleman in the community. He was just at this last gathering a couple of weeks ago. And he was actually just at my house a couple days ago, but he's in Oregon now. But he actually, this is taken from his home. That pyramid was in his backyard. So he's moved since then. He's on his own journey right now, also doing grid work and, you know, self-healing and working with the land. He's been getting involved in like a lot of different permaculture type things, you know, so he's moved from this place, but what an incredible view to wake up to every single day. And he saw this rainbow, and so he snapped that picture. And there's others that I could share with you and find. Even Red Elk's website, I think, mentioned it, but I've taken a lot of pictures of this pyramid, you know, driving through many times. And there's often very, very interesting cloud formations just above it that are nowhere else. Or so many times there'll be shadows all around it, except there's light shining right on the pyramid, and then everything surrounding it is all shadowed, so it really stands out. So
that is neat. And when I drove through that area, my friends and I tried to get up close to the pyramid, and it kept disappearing on us. Have you had that experience before?
I have indeed. Actually, we went with Jacob one time on a long hike to approach the pyramid. We didn't actually quite make it, only because we ran out of time. We were on a time schedule, and so we had to head back. But other times driving there, I have the coordinates. I know where it's at. And once you get closer, it's not there.
It's very strange.
It's not visible at all. And you know that you're right on top of it, but it's where is it? It must be behind all of these trees, but there's no way to, to get there really from the road. And from what I understand, it is on private property too. So you want to just be careful trying to approach it anyway or get permission and things like that. But I do know people that have been there that have, climbed up part of it and left offerings and things like that as well.
That's neat. So it's owned by a person, not by the government then?
As far as I know, I don't know about the pyramid itself, but the property is owned by an individual.
That's neat. That's really neat, because I know a lot of these are the government owns the land around them.
Yes, no, not this one.
Now you took this picture of this print here. Was this near the pyramid where you found this print?
This is actually at the Chewelah Peak Learning Center, where we used to have our gatherings and retreats. So prior to you attending, that this center has now shut down due to COVID and many other factors. So they're not open anymore, but it's DNR property. And I've spent a lot of time on this property. And this track was like the largest, most really beautiful one. that
was defined. I mean, that's a beautiful track. That's one of the best ones that I've seen.
it is indeed. And that's Sunbow's hand next to it. So you can see, in comparison. I have another one of my foot next to it, and you can equally see that this thing was huge. And
so what size do you think this was?
It was somewhere around 26 inches. And so the being that this belonged to would have had to have been about somewhere between 15 and 18 feet tall.
That's fascinating. That's awesome. And I know I just recently watched a documentary it was up in Colville area, and they've had a lot of activity, just a lot of people camping out and having contact, with Sasquatch and other beings in that area. So you question, do these pyramids play a role in having more activity with ETs, Sasquatch, and a whole variety of beings? In your books or in your research, have you found a correlation with that, Kelly?
There is. It's actually kind of complex to give a yes or no answer to that. But the energy of these sacred spots in the pyramids definitely has an influence on us and our consciousness. But it's really up to us to tune into that or to believe in it in a sense, so people could drive by that pyramid all the time and not recognize it as being a pyramid. But those that do and that can feel, the sacredness of it or the history behind it or the energies behind it, because it's a long history. It's been around for a very long time. I've heard somebody say that it's been around longer even than like the Egyptian pyramids.
Wow.
Because this one, rather than bringing in all kinds of stone to build a pyramid, this is a mountain that was carved out using basically some kind of ancient technology like frequency and sound and vibration. And so, they use this technology that is not so available to us today, or that we're aware of anyway.
Yeah.
to create this pyramid. So it was always there. It was never built. It was just defined and then, turned into the sacred spot that it was. And many of the stones that were removed from it to create the pyramid shape, they were distributed to many different areas. So including Crystal Falls, like behind me, a lot of these rocks and these boulders and things are directly from this pyramid site.
That's cool. And I was just commenting before we started recording that it looks behind you looks like a Sasquatch face or some sort of being in the rock, structure there, which is really neat. And I didn't notice it till you moved. And then I'm like, whoa, something is staring back at me. And oftentimes when I'm doing grid work, I don't even recognize that I'm doing it. My entire life, I've probably been to 50 countries. And in my 30s, I traveled significantly to all these different places, Russia, Croatia, Estonia, all these places. And I was doing it for fun, to travel. But now I'm recognizing I was also every single country buying a rock of the land. So whether that for earrings or a necklace or something, I was buying a specific crystal or a rock. And I was doing it because I loved the jewelry and I thought it was beautiful. But now I'm recognizing that I was doing grid work. I was collecting pieces of the land at all of these places without even recognizing that I was doing it. And how many of these pyramids was I around, during all of my travels without even understanding I was doing it. And oftentimes I had a friend who went with me and she was a chaplain. So she'd always have me go to the local churches in the area that were very old, very ancient churches. And I would notice that I would walk into these and I would start weeping and sobbing and crying. And I'm like, what is happening?
Wow.
Now I'm recognizing I was cleansing those sacred sites, through my energetic field by transmuting that energy. And at the time, it was kind of a joke. She was like, why can't you walk into a church without sobbing or crying? And I'm like, I know, what's wrong with me? But it was funny because I would also all these different cathedrals and just places that weren't always necessarily of interest to me, but they were of interest to her. But when I went into them, I was having reactions, in them, being highly an intuitive empath. I was picking up on this energy. So I do feel that for me being a grid worker, I'm guided often just through the way I feel. It's almost like I get an impression in my mind that says, you need to go here. And after your event in 2020, I went to Glacier, Yellowstone, Tetons, Crater, Shasta, and some other places. And then I was up in Alaska. And literally this happened in maybe two months time frame. And every single time I was guided to just sit. And this is during COVID when everyone was in lockdown. These national parks were no one was there. People joke, you could have become a David Paulides, statistic. But I'm like, there was a reason I was guided to all of these locations. And I personally feel that skull downloaded me with codes.
Yes.
How do you feel about that? I mean, you being a grid worker, what is your experience of clearing the land?
You know what? Very similar. Very similar. I get called to different areas. I mean, the whole reason I'm here in Washington State and in this county where I'm at is because I felt that calling and that connection to be here. But yeah, I believe that the skull also helps to awaken those codes or, information that we need to know about ourselves or, part of our mission here and things like that, that it definitely activates a lot of that for a lot of people. And I experienced very much the same. And actually the skull even did a marriage ceremony with Bill.
I remember.
And we weren't even really expecting that, but it was this really beautiful ceremony in union. And it was like, I don't even know how to put it into words. It was like an establishment. And I knew that from there on that I'd also be working very much with other crystal skulls. And since then I have gotten them. This is Mihunka. Oh, is she?
Ooh.
I have to put her, but she came into our lives after working with the Mitchell. Do you see how it's glowing?
I can feel the energy. I'm literally got goosebumps and just ripples. I call it the cosmic orgasm because it goes.
I have no idea why it's glowing, but well, there you go. I mean, it's
beautiful.
Pure light. Yes. So anyhow, and I have others, that I'm working with now, but that became quite apparent to me after meeting the skull that would happen. And in this mid-September, I've actually been guided to return to Arkansas, to the Ozarks area, where I lived for like 10 years prior to moving here to Washington State. And we're having a gathering called The Gathering of the Ancients. I have a flyer next to me here. I don't know. Well, that doesn't do any good. It's pretty blurry.
I can post it. I can post it under.
Okay, but yeah, the Gathering of the Ancients, the 16th through 18th of September. And so there's going to be a lot of grid work involved in that. We're going to be teaching a lot of different indigenous type cultural type information and wisdom, and we'll be doing some practices like a trade blanket ceremony, you know, making a prayer stick and things like that. But also the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull will be there as well. So, you know, there's a lot to unfold there that I'm still not even completely aware of, but I know that there's a healing that needs to be done on that land. And, you know, with the group of people that will be attending and things like that. So I may not have like the full clear picture of everything that's meant to be, but without a doubt, I know that we're supposed to be there, gathering there. And Bill, the caretaker of the skull, when I told him about it, he's like, oh my God, I've been feeling the call to come out to Arkansas. The skull really wants to be there. So it's like, okay, there we go.
That's funny, Kelly, because when I moved from Florida, so I think part of grid work as well is being flexible to move when you feel guided to move. And I had lived in Florida for nearly 20 years, and then something came over me that said, you need to get out west. And I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew I had packed up my place. My lease was going to be done in 2 weeks, and I didn't know where I was going. I just had a U-Haul. I had my friend who was going to help me.
Wow.
And at first I thought I was moving to Idaho, which is funny because then I ended up in Washington first, and then I bounced back over to Idaho. But we drove right through the Ozarks. And I remember I could feel this dense, heavy energy. And we drove through there at night. And I was more like, let's get through here, you know, because I was following her in my car with my cats. And I remember my cats getting a little agitated when we were driving through that area. So I'm sure you're being guided there to cleanse that land, because I could sense it and I could feel it. And that was well before I even understood what my purpose was or what my role was here, you know, as a light holder or a frequency holder. So
Yes.
yeah, so the Ozarks, I feel like, and I've talked to a lot of my clients are like, Tanya, I'm feeling nudged to move, but I don't know where. And I'm like, just hold tight. You will know. You know, I honestly didn't even really know until I got to like South Dakota. And it was like, okay, I kind of feel it. And the moment I drove through Coeur d'Alene, I was like, I'm meant to be here. But I had rented a place in Spokane. And that year I was in Spokane, I was in tremendous pain. My body, I just hurt so badly. And I think I was transmuting that, you know, that energy there in that space. And then I moved a year later, I moved across the border, and now I just feel this, it's just light, you know, just this nice sense of, peace, you know, with me. So, but I am also feeling that little nudge again. That's like, okay, where am I up to now?
Right.
I've been feeling this pull to just go visit Utah, like Bryce Canyon, Zion, that whole area. And I've never been, but I'm feeling this. It keeps popping up. You know how synchronicities, like today, I was telling you I was looking for the Chewelah pyramid, and you just sent me a tag on Facebook 2 seconds later.
Yes.
And I'm getting that with Utah. It's like people keep mentioning it. I keep seeing it. I'm like, okay, I can feel when my intuition is telling me, or my higher self is like, it's time to go visit here.
Beautiful. Well, I'll just share that this last November, we took a road trip down to New Mexico to join the Chinos and their event for the collective frequency. And so it was, you know, quite the road trip, but we loved Utah so much, specifically the Moab area.
Oh yeah.
That we spent a couple extra days there, you know, visiting some of the touristy things. There's the dinosaur tracks and things like that, but also the Arches National Park. And it's just so amazingly beautiful. It's breathtaking to imagine that the earth can be that diverse, and that something so amazing could be created here. And it looks so different from like what's the scenery behind us
Or
right
even
now.
northern Utah, northern and southern Utah are so vast.
It is. It is. So, but Moab particularly was a place that we really enjoyed, and that we're kind of feeling the call back to return. You know, and we have a family, I have a child and everything. So traveling is not so easy just to like always get up and go. But when I feel this call to like be somewhere, it's like, okay, let's start the plans right now. And
And oftentimes, Kelly, if it's meant to be, it'll just fall into your lap. And that's what's happened with me. It's like, okay, I'm feeling guided to visit here. Where am I going to stay? And then boom, something reaches out to me or someone and says, hey, I have this place to stay. And I'm like, wow. So I was actually looking at a map of the ley lines, and there are several ley lines that run through Salt Lake City. More than average, you know, more than most locations. So there's definitely some serious vortex energy. And I'm sure with the Salt Lake there, it's like a conduit, you know, and so maybe that's why we're all being pulled, is to not only gather codes from those areas, but also give codes to those areas.
Yeah, and to also give recognition for the sacred sites that they are and the history behind it. So much of that has been lost, you know, but there's so much being discovered now. There's all kinds of pyramids and underground things, you know, that are being discovered now after thousands of years that we had no idea about. The Ozarks in Arkansas particularly is the oldest mountain range in the world. And many people say that it is like the source of some life itself. There was a lot of trading there. People would basically gather in that area. They would be called for many different reasons, but a lot of it has to do with the crystal, the natural crystal in that area. And so all of these different tribes and people from all over the world, not just the United States or Mexico and Canada and things like that, but, you know, different tribes of people would come from all over the world to the Ozark region to meet and to trade or to do ceremony or to learn from one another and things like that. So this is kind of a continuation of that. I'd have to look at the history more. I can't recall all the details, but I remember that Salt Lake City also was a very significant place. Salt Lake, it has something to do with the salt there, literally.
It's a special salt. And I visited the lake, and there was a bison just running everywhere, and it was plentiful, you know, for them, but it's not like a salt we can swim in, not like the ocean. It's a different type of salt.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. And I do feel there are certain locations that have those high contents of different quartz or copper or, you know, different things, almost like orgone energy, you know, that is powerful there. I know my sister lives in Sarasota, and I was doing some research on Siesta Key, and they claim that there's a portal there to inner earth, which is very interesting. And the entire beach there is highly charged up with quartz crystal. And I've got a friend who lives in Cape May, New Jersey, and she says there's a significant amount of paranormal activity in that area. Well, we did some research, and a lot of it, the whole beach is made of quartz.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I do feel that plays a role.
Definitely. I have a couple of connections, a couple of people that I could connect you with that live in that area, that do a lot of grid work and gatherings and things like that. Greg Prescott is one of them. So he lives there. You can always see him on the beach and doing things like that. So anyway, that he would be a good source of more information about that. But there's definitely, these very specific points all over the world, all over the map that are these like high energy zones. But we're going around and activating and integrating it into many other areas too, or areas where that knowledge has been lost, you know. So it's kind of a clearing to allow that to come back through.
That's neat, Kelly. So when you say activate, let's explain that a little bit more for people to, you know, so they can understand, like, what does that mean when we say we are activating or clearing the land? How do we do that?
Yeah, well, I would say, I would think it's kind of like, for me, it's a little bit different definition with activation. Activation to me is a little bit more like flipping the switch on.
Yeah.
You know?
Lighten it up.
It's kind of like, yeah, literally the light bulb, the knowledge that's coming to you that starts to put all these puzzle pieces together, the activation or the feeling that you get. You might get chills, or you might start crying or laughing uncontrollably, or, you know, something like that. A lot of times there is some kind of physical sensation or some kind of aha moment to an activation. And sometimes it doesn't happen immediately. Sometimes, you know, it's after you have come in contact with the source of that activation, you know, like the crystal skull or something, that, you know, a few days later, you'll just be like, I can't stop thinking.
I can't
about
stop.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so that's, to me, that's more of what an activation means. So as far as like the land goes, yeah, if you're activating a land, it is kind of this this transition that changes the energy and the momentum, and you know, even the karmic history of an area. You know, because you can't you know, go back in time and change things, but we can heal things through our consciousness and through our intentions. So if there's a space that just has you know, an unfavorable history or energy to it, you know, say there was a, you know, a big battle there or something like that, or if there was a, like Draco's controlling the land, or, you know, something of that nature. It's not that you can stop that from have ever happening, but you can transmute it and you can heal it, and you can send this loving energy back to the earth and all of the beings that are still energetically present,
Or stuck. Yeah.
or stuck, right, stuck, or still reliving the karmas or the
reincarnation
traumas.
loop. Yeah.
Exactly. And so we can do things to help activate things so that they can be released, or so that they can have the clarity of whatever they need to know to move forward, or to know that, hey, this was healed like 2 million years ago, you can go now. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And in my QHHT sessions, oftentimes I'll take people back in the past, and I've had them back in ancient Egypt doing things. And it's like, okay, this isn't our first rodeo. You know, it's like, we've done this many, many, many times. It's just now we're remembering that we've done this many, many times, and we are on Earth. And we are, you know, I think a lot of it is we want to know we want to see the whole staircase, when in reality, we're just seeing one step at a time. And that's really hard for us is starseeds, light workers, grid workers, you know, however, and it's even hard to categorize, you know, what we are, but,
Right.
and I'm tuning into new gifts all the time. And so one thing that I loved, and I'll share this again, one thing that I loved at your event, when you cleared that space up there in Kettle Falls, some of the beautiful energy that came through there, and I enhanced this a little bit so you can see some of these beautiful energies. And what we were doing is we were playing music. And I remember I was in the back of the campsite, and we were seeing extraterrestrial ships. And I know on the other side of the campsite, people were having rocks, boulders, and thumping noises, and you could hear footprints. And I remember that night that I camped, okay, so this was funny. I remember this. I kept hearing huge footprints around the campsite, and then I would smell a god awful smell that kept rip-roaring through the campsite. And I would hear people giggling in their tents, like, what is that smell? And so, you know, there's always that association with Sasquatch, and sometimes it's a good floral smell, and sometimes there's this, you know, stenchy smell. But it was really funny because I kept hearing the footsteps, and then having these waves of smell kind of come through, and then this beautiful energy that we had, you know, going on. And then I love this photo. You know, and I got the back of her, so if she doesn't consent to this photo, but
oh yes,
I love this photo. Look at this beautiful purple energy coming out, and then this little Merkaba kind of top looking, you know, piece next to her. I just loved that photo. And that's an example of cleansing the land and cleansing our energy and being able to visually see it. I think I can often feel it because I'm highly clairsentient, but for me, this was like, okay, that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling all of this powerful energy around me. And I just love that because it's so beautiful. And I think those are all the pictures that I had to share of that event. But yeah, so I think when we say we're activating, we're receiving light codes, we're giving off light codes. I know when I come in contact with other starseeds, light workers, grid work, whatever, we activate through our eyes, just looking at each other through the eyes, and I'll get a ripple through my body. They'll get a ripple. I've had many times where I've met people and they look at me and they say, I don't know how I know you, but I feel like I love you, and I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling this strange, unconditional connection to you too. And I don't understand it, but I think that's when we know we're with our soul family.
Exactly. And I'm so excited to experience that year after year at these, gatherings that either I put on or ones that I attend and things like that. Yeah, there's like this instant connection with soul family. Many times, I'm very much a dreamer, a dream weaver, I guess. And so I dream of a lot of these people and the events before they ever happen. And I may not know where it is or the timing or the circumstances, but I dream of them. And then finally I catch up to that in real time. And it's like, oh, I know, like, I remember you from this dream, or or even know like something that we're supposed to do based on the dream. So it's incredible, just year after year, more of that unfolding and connecting more with more soul tribe. And now the more that we travel, we're connecting with more of them and bringing them to these different areas, and people travel to them too, and so they're bringing back this information and that energy back to wherever they live afterwards. So it's a big grid network.
It is. And if you look at the earth, it has a grid like a net, with these nodes, and these pyramids connect, and the ley lines, and these sacred sites. And just yesterday, the solstice, seeing all of the different locations across the earth that are in alignment with the solstice, Stonehenge and Chichen Itza, all these places that the ancients knew this. And we are the ancients. We are here, in this realm, in this reincarnation. We are bringing this knowledge and wisdom through our Merkaba, our DNA, through our subconscious. And we just have to bring it to our conscious mind to be able to remember. We have so much knowledge and wisdom built inside of us. And when we connect with one another, it's just our energetic fields. It's like this this transfer of energy, between each other, and this transfer of information. And it's so fun when you just surrender to it. And like you said, you have a dream and you don't know where you're supposed to be or what you're supposed to do, but you have faith and you trust that in divine timing, you will be where you're meant to be, and the people will just show up.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is awesome, So what do you think about, how does Sasquatch correlate with some of these ancient sacred sites? Do you feel that Sasquatch guards these portals or these lands or these energies? What are your thoughts around that?
Yes, well, they do. There's actually so many different roles. They're carekeepers of the earth, and so everything that we're talking about is on earth. And so they're carekeeping these spaces and this history. They're helping to basically hold space for a lot of this. So sometimes they're guardians of different areas. A lot of times they've also been created to help create these things. Like at Crystal Falls, I telepathically had a few experiences with a race of beings, a few individuals that say that they're from a race called the Taza'atem, or they call themselves the Taza'atem race, and that they were created by the Anu Tinzane race, which is kind of like maybe a hybrid of maybe the Anunnaki Actually, that's just really an assumption based on the name.
Yeah.
But I do know that they have long heads, the long sloped.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
And then I came across Red Elk's information.
Yeah, I just read
The
that.
same thing, and it was like, wow, okay. So that really confirms things. But the Taza'atem race was basically like a Sasquatch and sloped head being hybrid race, and they were created to really do a lot of the physical work. If you want to call them a slave race, I'm not so sure they're slaves, but they were a
Worker
race.
bees. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And so a lot of those beings are still kind of hanging out in these areas because that's their home, you know, and they protect it and they guard it, but they're not usually like interacting so much. I feel honored to have done that, but that was also to bring forth a lot of the information. I wrote about it in the Sasquatch Message to Humanity, book 3. There's some information in there about the pyramids and about crystal falls and that race of beings there. And there's actually, if you would like me to, there's some information that's also in the 3rd book that was transcribed by Sunbow. It's a direct message from Camus, and it relates to absolutely everything that we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
So,
Share it.
okay, so yeah, I have it here. Here's the, whoops, I know how this thing is.
I'll share it underneath. Yeah. Mhm.
Yes, Sasquatch. So I'll pick up, this is from chapter 30. And the Sasquatch say, we now want to bring your focus on ways to bring global healing and counteract negative energies. When our star elders decide to develop spiritual consciousness on a given home planet, they install vast networks of frequency harmonizers, telepathic transmitters, and other healing devices along natural ley lines and vortices to energize those power points with free energy amplifiers programmed with high consciousness wisdom, while empowering a planetary energy grid harnessed by their civilization. So these devices are made of rods, conical, pyramidal, spherical, cylindrical, or parabolic shaped parts, programmed crystals, magnetic and meteoric stones like shungite or moldavite, charged magnets, orgonite, prisms and coils, spirals and rings of conductive metals like copper or gold, use universal conscious technologies, acting as antennas, tapping into the natural energy flow and funneling it in harmless, non-polluting, sustainable ways, while harmonizing natural frequencies with healing virtues. These environmentally friendly devices can be programmed with information transmitted on waves. And I'll pick it up here in a moment, but I feel that this is the perfect time to show this pyramid that I just created yesterday. And check this out, Tanya. There's your spiral.
That's awesome.
I know. And so, yeah, these are orgone devices, but I also feel when I create these that I am channeling a certain kind of energy and frequency to put into them too. So I put really high intentions and the highest quality like ingredients that are, you know, sacred crystals and things like that in them.
It'd be neat to get some dirt from the Chuila pyramid to add into those too. That would be kind of fun.
Indeed, I
land.
do, yes. So I will just skip a little part of this and pick back up and say tuned frequencies. And this is from Camus, the eldest elder Sasquatch. Tuned frequencies can also produce wireless electricity in vortices acting as interdimensional portals that can be directed to harness plasma as a quasi-infinite source of power, also known as St. Elmo's fire. This is why the word pyramid means fire in its mid, because their shape channels a range of waves of various frequencies to converge and cross at its apex, opening portals for plasma to merge with matter. When electromagnetic waves of any frequencies are tuned and paired to be synchronized, the portals they open at their crossing point blink in and out of existence at the rate of the frequency of the waves. Well, there you go.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
When waves are tuned in, alternating pairs, they are called scalar waves and maintain portals opened. The ever-present infinite reservoir, an ever-flowing stream of free energy in its many forms through the cosmos, can be made available only through the understanding of cosmic interdimensional connectivity. Tesla insisted that we must understand the waves emanating from the 2D to understand the universe. And acting as antennas, capturing waves of diverse frequencies, or as focal points for plasma to condense, like the masts of sailboats or the druidic and shamanic staffs that could capture the plasmic flow into a glowing, hazy cloud of ionized electrons that consciousness can direct for various uses. Pyramids, obelisks, crystals, rings, Dorj or Vajra, and other geometrical devices tune frequencies into free energy. They're conscious quantum devices programmed to turn waves of possibilities into manifested energy. Sacred geometry takes a wider dimension when the interactions of physical matter with subtle planes is considered in the equation. Some shapes or patterns make ripples in magnetic fields and auras around. And so there's more information, but I am really just kind of reading. So
no, that's awesome. I was buzzing that whole time, so I think there was something in there for all of us.
Exactly, yeah. And like I said, there's more. So I totally encourage you to pick up the third book if you want more information about this area, the pyramids, the kind of information that I read off to you there. But I just thought that it kind of aligned beautifully with everything that we're talking about today, and to share really the perspective that the Sasquatch people have to share about this. So there's so much more than just the honoring of the land or the understanding of, the shape of a pyramid and what it's capable of. It's really creating a whole new co-collective consciousness when we're harnessing it and using these energies consciously and correctly.
That's absolutely fascinating. And so it's like, so do you feel that some of these pyramids are dormant and we are here to activate them, or are they working, but maybe we've got to transmute the energy? And what are your thoughts around the current situation of the pyramids around the world?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both and all and neither.
Yeah.
So the global pyramid grid has been activated, but there's some individual pyramids that have to be more activated. So like they're on the grid is active, but there are dormant pyramids that do need to be opened up and released or healed, or there's different karmic ties connected to it. And so yeah, a lot of individuals are going around and doing this grid work or doing this energy work with them, and there's more that in time, when the time is right, that the other ones will be activated. It's kind of like, your flower garden, they don't all flower at the same time. You get to enjoy it over time. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't be beneficial for all the other flowers if they all bloomed at the same time. So it's very much the same, kind of activating one at a time or a few at a time, but there's so much karmically, so much energetically connected to each one of these sites or to each one of these pyramids that it takes time for things to be integrated. I worked with the Chihuahua pyramid with a couple other people energetically. So we weren't even physically there, but then again, I was, because
yeah.
I could see myself, I hear you. I could feel it, and I knew I was there. Just like I'm looking at it behind you, like I knew I was at the base of this pyramid doing this. We did like a ceremony and activated this pyramid. And in my mind's eye, which was so real, the top of the pyramid opened up and all of this light started bursting up out of it and then coming down it. And it looked like plasma. It looked like mercury almost, except it was gold instead of silver. So it was all this mercury looking plasma, golden, that would come down, and it was kind of in blobs and it was real flowy. And then it came around me, like around my ankles, and it was thanking me. And I felt like it was calling me mom too. And I just, oh my goodness, I got really emotional at all of that. But I realized that these were trapped souls, more or less. These souls were trapped or stuck energetically, like underneath this pyramid, and they weren't able to, they've been there since they've been there, and now they've been released so that these souls have a chance to once again incarnate. So they couldn't even do that. And so there's a lot of that going on. And when you think about, all the different prophecies, or all that we hear about the different star seeds, or the indigo children and things like that, or, pure beings of light, or these, genius people that are going to, be coming to earth more and more and more. That makes a lot of sense. They've been withheld for a long time. And now, little by little, they're having their opportunities to come back and help to save the planet and humanity, because they really have the knowledge that we need to remember who we are, and to integrate this consciousness that we've really forgotten about as a race.
I agree, Kelly. And I do feel it's important for us to listen to the children, because the children are bringing in this higher frequency and this higher vibrational light. And, I didn't have children myself, but it's funny when I come in contact with these little star seeds, they have so much knowledge and so much wisdom, and they're activating me, in these areas. And I had a similar situation when I got lost, and I drove through the Yakima Indian Reservation, and I got out of my car and I started speaking light language, and I started crying, and I could hear in my mind's eye, thank you so much for releasing us. And thank you so much for clearing the land. And then I get back in my car, but I had lost time. I had lost time in this. I thought I was gone for 30 minutes. I was gone for 3 hours,
Wow.
So I do feel that sometimes when we are guided as grid workers, oftentimes these things will just happen, because it's like and I heard this when we started clearing some of these stargates or these portals with those light codes that I shared earlier. I kept hearing, you need to have the right frequency of people there. And so when I was reading on Red Elk's page, it said that a lot of the people clearing the land are female, or hold a feminine energy. Yes. And I thought that was fascinating, because most of the time that's who I'm working with, Yeah. And so it's like, there's a difference between who's holding what codes, and we're all holding different frequencies. And I think it's important for us to listen to the children, because the children are bringing in knowledge that maybe we've lost or we've forgot about, and we need to be activated, with that information.
Indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even my son, he's always drawing all these star maps and telling me about all these planets that none of you have ever heard of, I promise you. But he is just confident that this is the star map. These are these planets. This is what they look like. This is how you get there, and it's just like, wow. Okay. That's really amazing.
It is. And I recognize that in some of my QHHT sessions, where these kids, they remember their past lives more than say, I remember my past lives, and I'm a dreamer like you. A lot happens in my dream time. Yeah. I think I'm going to do kind of a series of all the different types of frequency holders and light holders. And because I'm like an astral worker, 100%. I work, a lot of people are struggling with insomnia right now. And I'm the opposite. I'm sleeping for like 12 or 14 hours. And I joke, it's like I'm doing a lot of work on the other side. I mean, Yes. When I'm sleeping, because I wake up and I'm exhausted, but I remember some of the things that I've been working on. And I'm also connecting with some of my friends and starseeds, and it's like, and I'll joke, I'll send them a message in the morning. I'm like, I just had a wicked lucid dream about us, activating this land or doing this. And they'll be like, I did too,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Some of us are starting to remember these connections. And so we have a connection with Mount Adams, me and this group. And there's no coincidences as to why I met you, why, when I was at, out at Mount Adams and one of my friends said, hey, do you want to go to the Sasquatch retreat next weekend? And I didn't even really know about it, so there's no coincidences. We're all being synchronistically guided to connect with one another, to connect with the land, to connect with the codes and the information. And so what are your thoughts around extraterrestrials being around these pyramids and these mountains? And do you think that there's bases on the insides of them? And, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah,
that's always a good question.
Well, I'm feeling that most of these underground extraterrestrial bases are really more intraterrestrial, because they're not extraterrestrial, but a lot of that has been cleared energetically. It's been explained to me that basically they're no longer there. There might be like some shadow remnants of things, like, the energetically what people are still karmically going through from some of that, but that these places are basically cleared of the more negative,
or the dense energy.
energies. Yeah, the more dense energy that would have been connected with them, because the planet has shifted. We're more in the 4D now than we were in the 3D. And so anything that's like really fear-based is just not gonna be able to survive, if you want to put it that way, or just not exist. The more we move out of a certain frequency, the more these other frequencies just aren't a part of our world. But there's definitely a great, huge extraterrestrial or intraterrestrial connection to the pyramids. They're the ones that told us to do it, gave us this technology. Or I say they, it's all us.
Yeah, I know it's hard.
It's our memories, but so it's that influence of these other star nations and all of these different beings that are helping us to remember all of that. So there's a great connection to many different beings, a lot of them that lived, like specifically that lived like under the ground. They would have been a lot of times referred to as like a Draco race or reptilian
lizardous rat. Yeah.
But it's really more of it's not a race thing, that. So it it's
a consciousness thing.
It's a consciousness. But also, like, think of what kind of beings now live underground. So the ants do. So there's a lot of ant people that are actually still living underground, still maintaining these systems and things like that. And they, for the most part, are of a higher consciousness. Like I said, it's all about consciousness more than it is race. But there are basically highly evolved ant type beings or inner earth type beings that are still working very actively with these ley lines and with the whole grid network and the pyramids and some of these areas that have a lot of these ancient kind of structures, and so much that we don't even, I don't know, because I don't know, but I know that there's so much that we don't know. There's so much beneath our feet. When you walk outside, there's so much happening just beneath your feet that you have no idea. There's lands, and there's big structures, and there's a whole different
pyramids. There's pyramids under the pyramids.
There's pyramids underground. There's even inverted pyramids.
Pyramids.
Yes.
That's when I remote viewed the dark pyramid of Alaska. It was inverted. There was two. It was one on the top and then one underneath it. So
wow.
Yeah, very visible to me. And so I agree with you on that. I feel like oftentimes we're looking to the skies when really it's in the earth, and I've had very vivid astral dreams and lucid dreams about being in inner earth and these civilizations and how they run off of crystal technology and, just fascinating things. And I can't always put the pieces together, but it's just like, oh my gosh, like I was transported into the inner earth. And I do feel that some, like Mount Shasta or some of these pyramids, these are areas where you can have easier access. And what are your thoughts around people going missing, in some of these national parks and around some of these sacred sites and areas? Do you think that their frequencies are shifting them into different dimensions? Or, I'm curious just to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I think it's a really a wide variety of different circumstances. Sometimes there could be a human or a physical being that's responsible for it or something. But no, I think for the most part, I think that people are kind of stepping into a portal or stepping into a vortex of some kind. And they're at a different frequency. Like where they are physically, I don't know. Like that's a pretty big mystery to me. But I do think that energetically, that has a lot to do with it. When you look at the Bermuda Triangle and, and all these strange things that happen around there, or even more defined than that really is the Alaskan Triangle and the things that happen in that area. So certainly couldn't be beings that are responsible for all of these disappearances. So I think that people are, like I said, stepping into some kind of time portal, some kind of vortex, possibly some kind of wormhole, but they're shifting into another dimension and another frequency that is not, it's running more parallel to ours. That doesn't mean that they stop existing, but they're not existing
in another realm, or
yes.
It's fascinating to think about, because I know it's very heavy out here in the Pacific Northwest, and it could play into all of the forest areas that we have, and in the water and these pyramids and the mountains. And, so it's just really fascinating to kind of, put all of these pieces together. And I agree. I feel like you do. It's like, I feel like there's a variety of things. I've done quite a bit of research on the Alaska Triangle. And I don't know, I have my own theories behind it, between the pyramids there, as well as HARP and the frequencies that they're working with. I think that it's almost like they're opening the astral realm a little bit, and that's why people are experiencing thunderbirds and otter men and, all of these very different types of cryptids and, all this other activity. Because it's like, and there's a lot of very heavy, darker Sasquatch stories that I've, listened to in Alaska. And maybe that plays off of the land, because there's also a lot of heavier animal attacks in those areas too. And I know, based off of frequencies, just sound frequencies, how our bodies respond to that. If they're working with fear-based frequencies, then that would, of course, affect all the beings and the creatures and people on the land,
Right.
So
I agree. There's just lots of different factors to that. But basically, if you are in a space of more fear, or something like that, then really you are more susceptible, to things like that. But there's also like the CERN, the Hadron Collider. And that really is truly very responsible for a lot of the strangeness that we're experiencing on Earth.
Mandela effect,
yes, because that really is making the veil thinner. We have our own our own consciousness factor of things, but these are basically like mad scientists trying to, make some big change, and they are. So there's some things that are just completely unpredictable or beyond what we can even really comprehend. Because it's technologies that we just don't get. Just like if you think of, well, how could an airplane or a vehicle be invisible. It's just, that's not possible in our world. We're in the 3D, but oh no, it's there. That technology is very much there and available and being used. It's just not in our hands. So, well, think about that. If a vehicle could be invisible, why couldn't they just snatch up somebody and that person would be in that frequency and be invisible to our vibration or frequency here too, you know? So many different possibilities. But I also just wanted to add and confirm that I've also had a few journeys to Middle Earth or to Inner Earth, and I'm certain that there's so much activity going on in there, and that there are very highly conscious beings that are helping us on this side of things as well.
Yeah.
You know?
And I believe that the beings are reaching out to the ones who are open to this frequency, who are expanding their consciousness, who are open to the frequency of love versus fear. And I do feel that way. I mean, at least with me, as I have been learning more and holding my own frequency and raising my own vibration and, you know, just holding that frequency of love instead of fear, I have received more contact, you know, from beings, which I say beings, but I know that they're just me. They're just me in another frequency, right? So they are visiting, and I'm sure it'll be a matter of time before I start to have more Sasquatch experiences. And mine is a little different. When I shared my spiritual Sasquatch story, it wasn't a physical seeing of Sasquatch. It was much more an energetic and a loving, nurturing experience. And so I know that's a little different than your normal, you know, banging on trees and, you know, kind of Sasquatch stories and whatnot, but that's okay, because we're all experiencing different things, because we're all in different vibrations and we're all in different frequencies. And so I think for me, it's just opening myself up to being more open and also having discernment. You know, I think that's important too for people out there. Don't just because a being is contacting you, don't, you know, just think that everything they're telling you is, you know, is of the upright truth. You know, it's like, you've got to discern, you've got to feel it into your body and say, okay, is this, and you can always ask, is this of the truth? Because spiritual law says that they have to answer, you know, to that. So I think as we open up more, you know, to these experiences, and as we raise the consciousness of the planet, we are going to have more contact. And I'm looking forward to that, because I think for me, it's been really exciting, just the CE5 events. And Kelly, I'd love to have you come down and join us sometime. We were thinking about doing one in Deer Park, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they're really fun. You know, it's just getting together, doing group meditations and having some really neat experiences with all like-minded people, you know, because I think when you bring the skeptics in, that's when it shifts the energy a little bit, makes it a little harder.
Yeah, exactly. We actually, Dale Lyons came to the Sasquatch Family Reunion a couple weeks ago and led a CE5 meditation event. And I actually didn't participate in it. I hadn't slept for almost 3 days and my body
I bet.
go home and go to bed. So, but it's funny because I was like, oh, I wish I didn't have to miss this. But on the way home, we kept having like contact. There was all these weird lights flashing and different things like that. You know, so it's like, oh, okay, I guess we're really not missing out on anything. We're getting the contact that we need. So,
if you're meant to be there, you're meant to be there. They'll pull you in regardless.
Yeah.
So Kelly, is there anything else that you'd like to share before we start to wrap up? And I also want to have you share some of your books and ways that people can reach out to you and all the amazing things that you're putting out into the world.
Sure thing. Well, yeah, I guess I would just say that if you're interested in the books, you can find out more about that information, you know, regarding the content and some videos and things at www.sasquatchmessage.com. And you could order the books on there. It actually links you through Amazon. So all three of those books are available on Amazon. And like I said, we just had our Sasquatch Family Reunion a couple weeks ago in Kettle Falls, but we are planning this gathering of ancients, a convergence of Earth Keeper wisdom. September 16th through 18th in Blanchard Springs, Arkansas. Or actually, it's Mountain View, Arkansas, in the Blanchard Springs recreational area. And that came to me in a vision too, because I was like, where should I have this? And it was like, boom, I saw this picture in my mind of this very specific waterfall that I knew where it was at. And I was like, oh, okay, I know where it's at. So I know where we need to go. This weekend, I'll be at the Medellin Falls Bigfoot Festival, vending and just kind of hanging out with people. I know there's like so many amazing people that come through there. So I'm looking forward to connecting with people. And I'll have all my Orgonite and jewelry and books and all kinds of fun Sasquatchy things available. And also, I've just been invited to speak at the Dragon's Gate Gardens on July 8th through 11th, which is in Tenino, Washington. It's between Seattle and Portland. And it's like going to be basically like another family reunion, it seems like, because there's a lot of wonderful people that have attended our event. So it's another place to activate the grid.
Yes.
Coming together. But Barbara Jean, Lindsay will be there, Garrett Duncan, Darrell Stokes that takes all the great orb photos. Shakara Tosha will be there. So so many great people. So I really look forward to that. And
you and I are speaking at the Earth Rising Sanctuary event as well, yes, on July 15th, 16th, and 17th in yes, the Kettle Falls, Washington area as well.
Yes. Yeah, fabulous. So it's a busy summer, and I'm grateful for all the opportunities to share and things like that. But for more information about events or where we'll be, things like that, I have another website, which is www.sasquatchfamilyreunion.com. Okay. So Sasquatch Family Reunion is for events. I also have some of my products on there, but the SasquatchMessage.com is really more about the overall, the Sasquatch message, a lot about the things that we discussed today and things like that. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share here and to continue to share and to have such a wonderful community that's so supportive and keeps calling us out. Hey, we need you out here now. And the universe seems to really greatly support that.
It does. And then tomorrow you'll be on Bigfoot Michigan Rob's brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob too, yes, on YouTube. So check that out, everybody. So if you want to see Kelly, check out, I think it's called BMR Rob on YouTube. And I appreciate you coming on, Kelly. I know this was a variety of topics, but it was really exciting. And I do feel that many of us are being woken up to these gifts and these abilities that are inside of us. And it's nice to have other people that you can reach out to when you are new to this. I know for me, 2 years ago, when I went to your event, this was all very new to me and it was rushing, through me, and I didn't really know who to talk to or what to do. And so it's really nice just to have others out there who are experiencing this, who can at least share where we are at, in this whole process. Because like you said, we're learning new things every day. We're understanding a little bit more about why we're here, on the planet. And I know for me, it changes almost daily,
Me as well.
what I'm talking about today will be different tomorrow. Yeah. But I appreciate you coming on, and I send everyone so much good, uplifting, positive energy, and continue to just shine your lights bright and follow your hearts, guys. I think that's one of the most important things we can do is follow our hearts and follow our intuition. So take care.
All right. Thank you.